really good to see your remarks in the Daily Caller talking about the budget cuts to the federal flight deck officer program. And this is something you and I have talked about before. But these cuts, while they really don't amount to much in terms of the deficit spending in Washington, D.C., would be absolutely catastrophic, it seems, for the federal flight deck officer program.
Well, they would. The intent of the Obama administration, I think it's very clear, is to strangle the program. And the program is very, very inexpensive, and it's extremely effective, but it's really an ideological thing. The Obama administration's got a problem with airline pilots having guns. I think they have a problem with a lot of people having guns. And they just got an ideological opposition to the idea, and it's really a dangerous game they're playing. I think your listeners would understand probably more so than anybody else how dangerous gun-free zones are. We did a terrible experiment from 1987 to 2003, making airline cockpits gun-free zones, and we found out exactly what the results of that experiment were on September 11th of 2001. So I think we're taking a huge step backwards. There's no reason to do this from a fiscal standpoint. I think in the article that I figured the percentage, and I forget how many zeros, but it's 0.000013%, I think, of the Obama deficit that's projected in his new budget. That's what we're talking about here for this tiny program that arms extremely large numbers of airline pilots who work for free.
Yeah.
None of us are. No airline pilot is paid to participate in the program, and they do this just because they're patriotic Americans that want to defend their airplane and their country. And so it's a very inexpensive program. It's extremely effective, and this is really, really bad and dangerous policy.
Where do you think this is coming from, Captain Price? Is this an anti-gun attitude, you think, within the administration?
I just don't think there's any question about it. There's just no other logical place for it to come from. These people just don't like guns. And they've done all kinds of things, and you guys have chronicled this for 3 years now, or probably longer, what this kind of games this administration has played to try to take away gun rights. And they just don't like guns, and they don't like citizens having guns. And airline pilots are no exception. So there's no other logical place for it to come from, Cam. It's not about the money because we save money. We cost a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of what the federal air marshals do. It's not about effectiveness because we're far more effective than anything else the TSA does. We are really defending the place on that airplane that needs to be defended, and we're doing it from inside. I say we, and I'm talking about armed pilots. I'm not saying I'm an armed pilot. I'm not saying I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
No pilot should ever answer that question. I'll just say that up front, though, but I'm not telling you or anybody else that I'm an armed pilot or that anybody is. I will tell you, though, there are extremely large numbers of them out there.
Well, absolutely. Some 13,000, right?
Well, it's, those are the kind of numbers that have been reported, and there are very, very large numbers of pilots. So I'll tell you, airline pilots, whether they are armed or not, fly all the time with the other pilot being armed, and airline pilots that are armed, frequently there are two armed pilots in the cockpit. So when you travel on an airliner, your odds of having that flight protected by an armed pilot are very, very high. Unfortunately, the odds of having that same flight protected by a federal air marshal are much, much lower.
Oh, absolutely. Now, you write in your piece that Secretary Janet Napolitano has said that the administration wants to, quote, strangle the FFDO program because it is not risk-based, and the administration wants to move to a risk-based system. Does that not indicate, Captain Price, that, and as you point out, I mean, you say the Secretary is essentially saying, trust me, I know where all the threats are. But again, we're still relying on human intelligence. There are going to be intelligence failures. Again, as you point out, I mean, the federal flight officer program is so cost efficient. I mean, it is in essence, a couple of dollars per flight, $15 per flight. This
Right.
just seems like a no-brainer. As somebody who travels as a passenger, this seems like a no-brainer to keep the federal flight officer program in place.
It's from a fiscal standpoint, there's absolutely zero justification. In fact, there was an Ohio State University study of everything the TSA does, and they recommended to save enormous amounts of money to the taxpayers that you cut the FAM program by 75% and double the size of the FFDO program, the Armed Pilot program, and you would save the taxpayer hundreds of millions of dollars, and you would protect many, many, many more flights than we're protecting now. So it's not a fiscal thing. It's not about saving money. I'm a fiscal conservative. I'm a conservative in general, but I believe we have to cut the size and scope of this federal government. But it seems the only place this administration is ever willing to look is in the one area where the federal government has legitimate constitutional responsibility, and that's defending the nation. And that's what this program is all about. This is about defending the United States. We were attacked using airliners on September 11th of 2001, and we can't have that again. We can't hand that ground back to these people after all we've done. And if I may, Cam, you mentioned about the risk-based. Can I address that briefly?
Absolutely, please.
Yeah, that's just laughable. That Janet Napolitano wants us, Americans who pass through security every time we go to the airport, and we see what's going on there. We know what's happening. We know that grandmothers are being taken out of their wheelchairs. I saw a YouTube video the other day of this poor little 3-year-old boy who's wheelchair bound being touched all over his body by somebody from the TSA. This is a little 3-year-old boy, and he was trying not to cry, and his family was upset. These people they're telling us, oh, trust me, we know where the risks are, but we see with our own eyes. They ignore the risks. These people are a one-size-fits-all security theater. Airline pilots, do not trust them. We are not going to take a promise from a bureaucrat who's never been in the cockpit of an airliner in her life, to my knowledge, and I guarantee you she's never flown one. We know what we need to keep our airplanes safe. This is what we've devoted our lives to. This is what we've devoted our entire professional careers to. We know what it takes to keep these airplanes safe. We know far more than Janet Napolitano knows.
Tracy Price, airline pilot for more than 2 decades, contributor at the Daily Caller. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on the program. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Hope we can do it again very soon.
Cam, it's just good to hear your voice again after all these years. We have to do it more often.
Thank you, sir.